Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is beginning of turn 4 for the Confederates. We're going to have a lot of melee, and I'm trying out some other things. I'm trying a little bit of mixed stuff with some fixed bayonets and some charging. Actually, I don't know if I'm doing any charging, but I'm trying fixed bayonets over here on the end with the 4th Texas. Going to try to shove the 86th New York out of there. Otherwise, we got a lot of melee going on. We're going to try to capture these guns. I've read through the artillery rules a few times. Doesn't seem to be much for canister rules. Maybe that's the double fire thing. I'll have to look, but it would seem if you're getting in canister range, those guns should be working you over pretty good. But they don't seem to be doing that. So I'm going to read up on that a little bit more. But anyway, so we're starting to hit the edge of the line here. We got some sharpshooters here still hanging out, trying to find some ammo, and these guys are about ready to be squashed, which means that's going to open up the whole Confederate right flank, a Union left flank. And of course, we still got the dudes coming. They haven't moved yet. The Union hasn't moved. So this is just the Confederate move. Trying to keep formations and stuff and not just run around like it's, a squad level game or something. It's, these are linear formations. So trying to stay true to that as much as possible within reason. And, I don't know. I think it plays pretty well. Having a really good time. So that's about it on that. Pretty much just a move to get everybody up into melee. And this guy over here, I was going to fix bayonets, charge. I think I fixed bayonets, charged, and ordered a melee. And he had an ineffective unit. And I think he had to rally somebody. Maybe he didn't have to rally somebody. But anyway, whatever it was, he had like 10 command points. He had just enough to do it all because of that one ineffective unit. So we'll see what happens. I was thinking, I wonder if you house rule that if you have stands lost, that counts as ineffective. Because honestly, losing those stands is much better than having them on the board based on command. And that just seems silly. So we'll see how that works, Again, I think it's more about the effectiveness of the guys on the board versus what's left. I mean, obviously, when your guys are getting flipped over to ineffective, their morale stinks because it drops usually from A's and B's to C's and D's and E's. And you obviously are able to cover less space. Even the Confederates are starting to consolidate a little bit because you can have up to 8 strength points in a hex. And so now with getting some of their guys flipped over to 3s and stuff, they're starting to stack a few units because then they can hit with more of a punch. I'm really interested to see once they take Devil's Den and get down into the Valley of Death here, what kind of shape they're in. Because we really only got, if you look up there, you have another brigade of Georgians, and then you have a partial brigade of some more Georgians that are going to come in on this side here. And we get another Georgian unit that comes in over here, I think, at 1. So that's all you really get. And then the north has basically a couple of straggler infantry from other brigades that would be off over on this flank, and they got one more brigade. So there's... Maybe it's because I like to play Goss and I play super huge games now. But I remember when I was a kid, this thing seemed so daunting. Like, wow, there's a lot of pieces. But really getting down to it, there's not going to be a lot of stuff left on the board after some fighting. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, thanks for watching. And the next video will be the defensive fire phase, followed by the Confederate fire phase for offense. So the Union gets to fire defensively, then the Confederates. And then I'll come back and do a short little blurb to show you what happened. And then, in the melee phases, I do the melee phase. I guess combat, I should say. And then I'll come back and do the Union, and we'll see how the dudes are shaking out on Little Round Top and how bad it's getting over here in Devil's Den. So, I won't spend too much more time, but it's interesting because I've been to Gettysburg one time. The view from Little Round Top is tremendous, and you can find it online really easy if you haven't been there. But I just think, what would it have been like running up on that hill and seeing the rebel flags and the gray-clad troops just pouring over that area, heading toward you, and watching the Union guys getting overrun that were just there. Kind of puts in perspective. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will get back to you after we do some combat. Hey everybody, welcome back. Here we are at turn 4, and just to give you a quick rundown of total casualties then. So this is the end of the defensive fire and the Confederate offensive fire. Now I still have melee to do. I didn't want to do that yet, but I wanted to show you some of the carnage. So it looks like so far the Confederates this turn have lost 2, 4, 6, 7 strength points, so that's going to be like 105 casualties. And the Union has lost 3, so they only lost 45. Now some key stuff here, these guys did not do hardly any damage, so they're probably going to get overrun because it's going to be like 5s and 6s against 1s. If you look over here, the 44th took some pretty decent damage, and they got some units that started running, and the unit on the end there took a hit. But they pretty much held their ground. Up here, you can see one of the crew here running over Houck's Ridge. That's the crew that have abandoned their single gun left, and they're probably going to... The 3rd Arkansas is probably going to capture those guns, I would say, this turn. And then we got kind of a mixed bag here. You can see the Confederates are starting to get some ineffectives. The Union is starting to get some ineffectives. And the generic major for the 86th New York got wounded. So we will have our first replacement major. So I went with another major because he had less stats. And then I'll go with a captain. I'm not sure what you do, if you're supposed to do that or not, but that's what I'm going to do. I'll look it up and see if he has to go down in stats. But the other guy was an 8-4. So I'm guessing he can go to a 7-4, and then the next one's a 6-3. That's my guess. So, anywho, that's where we're at. So we're going to do the melee next for the rebels. They did some fire over there, which demoralized the head of that column of the, what is that, like the 83rd? Yeah, the 83rd Pennsylvania. The other shells just, they're only able to fire with 3 batteries over there. The 2nd and 3rd Rowan can fire over there because the Napoleons can't reach. And this Richmond battery over here can fire. So they only have three guns that can pepper that hill. And they're kind of limited on what they can hit. They can't really hit that stuff. They might have been able to hit some of the stuff way in the back. But I think the cutoff is somewhere around like here. Like you can't fire past hex 12, so my finger would be covering some of that. So might not be able to even hit these guys. Maybe this unit, but then you'd have to check line of sight here. So they've been peppering that guy, which is probably an idiot, the commander that put him out there, which would be me. But yeah, so I'll do the melee and then we'll go from there. So appreciate you watching, and we'll get back to you. Okay, welcome back everybody. This melee stuff is crazy. So this is after the Confederate melee turn. So the Confederate turn of turn 4. We still have the Union turn. So you can see here, these little dudes are gone. And what happens is if you're meleeed when you're ineffective and you have to retreat, you get captured. So the Union has had 3 points captured, 2 of the 124th New York and 1 strength point of the 2nd U.S. Sharpshooters. So they've had 45 men captured this turn. They've had, 4, 5, 6, 10 casualties, so 150 casualties this turn so far. And the Confederates now are at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so they're both at exactly 150. If you look here, you can see the disordered troops are running away. Those are Confederates that didn't do well. And the Union guys that they disordered in the process, so the 40, I think that's the 44th Alabama. Yeah, because they got one dude left up there in the corner. They are streaming away and running through everywhere. The 48th Alabama, I think what I'm going to do is just allow the 48th to pass through them and regroup the 44th behind them. So I like tactically what that allows me to do. The 4th Maine is still holding on, but it's pretty ugly. The 3rd Arkansas overran the 1st and 2nd section of the 4th New York. So they're sitting on top of those Union guns, and there's one little crew marker running away that's got, I think, 1 crew point, maybe 2. But that's it. I think it's got one crew marker. And then over here in the woods, the 86th New York and the 124th New York did not hold that wall at all. So they charged and fixed bayonets and did a melee, which is going to be hard for them to do now because you can see now they have some ineffective units with the 4th Texas. We got a disordered guy. We got a number of casualties, but they have pushed off that unit. And I think realistically, those Union units probably need to start running back towards this fence and see what they can do and see what kind of resolve my Confederates have on the push. I don't know if my Confederates, I think they could still maybe keep pushing in that area. Not 100% sure. Because there's a lot of disordered Confederates in this area too, right? So, I mean, there's lots of disorder everywhere. And, oops, I did forget this guy here is a 4th Texas. So I believe he was on this guy right here. So yeah, so it's oh, you know what, I gotta put this real quick while we're thinking about it or I'll forget. We didn't have any officer casualties. We had several rolls for officer casualties, and we didn't have any in the melee because when there was an officer, it wasn't such a huge result. So yeah, the melee does exactly what you think a melee would do. There's tons of disruption, which means to rally all those guys, they're going to spend a lot of time spending command points to rally guys. There's not going to be a lot going on this turn other than continuing to probably get away from the bad guys. They're enemies, I guess is what I mean by that. So, oh, and then I did do some rapid fire and stuff, so I did volley markers for those. I'll take those off. These guys are still scrounging for ammo. That hasn't went well. So that's it. So I'm going to do the Union movement, and then I'll come back and I'll film that video. So this coming up here, we have turn 4 of the Union turn, and nope, there's no reinforcements till turn 5, so they're going to have to deal with what they got on the board. So we'll be back in a bit. Thanks. Okay, so here we are, turn 4 movement. You can see there's a little bit changed on the board. Basically, the remnants of the 4th Maine and the 2nd U.S. Sharpshooters are trying to hold this far left flank on the base of Big Round Top. I think they got themselves a couple of turns because the 44th here is going to have to regroup, and the 48th and 47th could continue that attack through Devil's Den, but that's going to take a while. These guys don't have any opposition now, but it's going to be slow going. We'll do some double times and we'll try start pushing them up through this way here. We'll see how that goes. The 99th Pennsylvania moved up, but they stayed behind Houck's Ridge out of artillery and out of any small arms fire at this moment, so there'll be no firing there. In fact, the only place I think we'll be able to fire is going to be like right in here a little bit. And we'll get to drop some artillery over here. But and then basically, so I've seen a lot of comments online where people are like, well, man, everybody seems to have so many command points, it doesn't really affect anything. Well, when your leaders go down and you end up with a 7-4 and everyone's disrupted and there's 4 ineffective units in a regiment, you basically, I had enough strength to order them to move backwards. And that was it. And then this guy right here, Brigadier General Warren, he was able to rally the stack with the major on it. But that's it. I mean, he can basically do one thing a turn. Like, he could have rallied one guy or moved. That's it. I mean, so when you're playing this game, just so you know, once you get ineffective units, now I know there's some people that say, well, when you just don't, you just keep the ineffective units out of range and leave them. Well, maybe so, but I don't think that's the spirit of the game. The spirit of the game is to keep that regiment together, I think, as much as possible. I mean, you might make some decisions, but you're not going to just abandon every ineffective unit and let them perish and stand there and randomly move. So that's the way I'm playing it solo. So I'm enjoying the flavor of the game more than competitively just trying to win. That being said, I don't think it would do any good for you just to lose all those strength points, because if you leave all those ineffectives for the 4th and the 5th Texas here just to mop up, That's all victory points, and that's not good either, I don't think. So that's the end of the Union movement. Then I'll do the Confederate. There'll be a little bit of artillery probably up over here, and then we'll do a little bit of small arms here, not very much at all. I think basically some of the 47th here, Alabama, I got like 2 units that can fire on actually just the 4th Maine and that leader in the 4th Maine in the trees, because you can fire two spaces into the trees. So that's about it. And then they could probably return fire. Actually, they can't. Only one guy could return fire because the other guys would end by the stream, because you can only fire 2 hexes through woods. So he's in kind of an awkward position there. But yeah, so we'll see how it plays out. I did get that gun set back up over there, so it didn't really hurt me, but it's just kind of waiting for the Confederates to come rolling over Houck's Ridge there, and we'll see what happens. I decided to shake them out of column, and I'll probably wait and see where these guys end up. I'm probably looking at doing something like, do something like this. I don't know. Maybe anchor in the trees a little bit or something. Maybe do something more like this and anchor in the trees. I'll have to see how much ground they cover. About 15 hexes, I think. So as long as you're at a higher elevation, that's helpful. So I think if I made them fight uphill versus wait and just let them come uphill, I don't know what I'm doing. So we'll figure it out. I'm going to do a little bit of I'll do the defensive and offensive fire. Then I'm probably just going to do the Confederate movement, because normally I'd come back and report it, but unless there's anything major that happens, it's going to be like a couple of hexes. So, and I'll just update you on the on what happened during the fire phase after I do the Confederate movement phase. And I might decide to push with the 4th and 5th Texas to keep pushing those guys back right here. Push those guys back into them, because they're in really rough shape. Every one of those units with a disorder on it is also ineffective, I believe. The only non-ineffective unit is stacked with the replacement major, and that's why he had to go back there. And he was disordered, but he was able to rally. So I might try to push one more turn. Because, if you melee those guys and they lose and have to retreat, they get captured. So you can snarf up little 2 and 3 strength counters pretty fast. But it goes both ways. There's some ineffective Confederates. So we'll have to see. I'm kind of curious, after this is all said and done, of how much strength the Confederates will have left for pushing the attack. Because they only get, we talked about that, they only get two more brigades and a half a brigade up there. So that's not a ton, but we'll see. It's certainly interesting. So basically it looks like each side gets 3 brigades and a partial brigade. So 3.5 brigades, we'll say, a division. So yeah, good stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will do those moves and I'll get back to you. I guess I had to actually do a real quick short little video because it's the end of turn 5 or end of turn 4. So I'll be splitting the turns if I do it the other way. So this is the end of turn 4. So what is that? 32 minutes of battle. So the Confederates are pushed up close to Devil's Den. We got Vincent's brigade is forming on Little Round Top. It's looking pretty bleak. We did have a little bit of an event. This guy here, this little 4th Maine dude right here with number 2. So a couple of companies of the 4th Maine. So that'd be like A, B, that'd be like company C and D. Shot over here at the 47th Alabama. Oops, you know what I forgot to do too? Is I forgot to make their morale roll. Oh, and I rolled a 5, so that's going to change it up even more. So you get to do this with me. So C with a 5. Okay, so the only difference is it's just going to add a disorder. So let me do that real quick. Anyway, this guy here I'm putting the disorder on had the Lieutenant Colonel Bolger on there, and he got wounded by that shooting. So there was something significant. But that's how we end for turn 4. So now we'll start Confederate turn 5. And they don't get any reinforcements till next turn, but the Union's going to get some. And I purposely haven't been looking to see what comes where. I have a rough idea, but I haven't been looking too much because I want to see what happens. But all right, so I'm going to do the Confederate turn, and then I'll come back and show you after their movement. So this is the beginning of turn 5 after this.